Welcome to the final lecture of this series of Building a Business. Welcome to those that have come on other weeks and to those that are just joining us tonight as part of the Mix at 6 event as well. So hopefully you enjoy this excellent panel discussion that we have. Just a few notes. So those people that have attended 5 or more of the lectures, you will be receiving a certificate via email in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that will be sent directly out to you. You don't need to worry about coming in to collect it or anything like that. We also, just to let you know, that applications are now open for one of our other programs called View. This is a startup workshop that runs over 6 sessions and is designed to provide practical learning and insights, allowing people to explore their ideas a little bit further. So actually kind of more hands-on experience, kind of carrying on from what you may have learnt here to actually developing your individual ideas. If you are interested in kind of what you've experienced here and want to know more about what the Entrepreneurship Centre offers, we do have a newsletter that's sent out each week. So if you're not already signed up to that and you want to hear more about the events and programmes that we do, please do sign up to that. And you can just Google Oxford Launchpad and that will take you through the kind of, just take a few details from you and you can receive the newsletter to hear more about what we're doing. So back to tonight, I will hand over to Morys-Carter, who's director of the Entrepreneurship Centre, and she's going to kind of take you through ask the panel a few questions and get them to introduce themselves, and then we'll hand over to you guys to ask some questions as well. Okay? Thanks, Megan.
Thank you very much, Natalie. So I'm delighted to join you tonight with our excellent panellists. My name is Morys-Carter. I'm the director of the Entrepreneurship Centre, and I've also been involved in several startups myself, including one called Smart Care Analytics, which has been my most recent venture. I am joined here with some people who are really doing it, however, and so I'm sure you'll learn a lot from some of the stories that they have to tell of both successes and possibly some of the challenges that come with being an entrepreneur and a startup manager as well. So I'll ask the panel to introduce themselves. I think we've got Paul, Nik and Sarah here from 3 very different types of startup businesses. So I'll give them 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning to just introduce themselves, talk about their particular ventures and what they're involved with at the moment. And then I've got a number of questions to just tease out some of their story. And then I'll hand over to you guys, and we've got, I think, a couple of roving mics, and we'll take some questions from the floor. So do make some notes as we're going along and think about some of the questions that you'd really like to have answered. If we don't manage to capture all the questions, which is often the case because obviously there's a lot to be covered, then I think the panellists will be around later as well over drinks, so don't panic. But first of all, let me hand over to Paul Roberts from Aspire Oxford. Paul, would you like to give your introduction?
Thanks, Megan. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming. My name is Paul Roberts. I'm the CEO of a local social enterprise called Aspire Oxford. Aspire Oxford, in terms of the social enterprise offer that we run, was a spin-off from the charity that's been established for 15 years. And the reason why we decided to go down that route was because we wanted to respond to tackling unacceptable and very high levels of social deprivation and poverty in Oxford, and to do that in a way that was enterprising, that was innovative, and that was moving away from the traditional charity model of giving, and that was quite disempowering, to one that was very much focused on enabling and empowering people to take charge and make changes in their lives. And enterprise is a fantastic way of doing that. So in the last couple of years, we set up enterprises in community transport, grounds maintenance, property services, recycling, and next year we're hoping to launch a new enterprise in recruitment. And it's a fantastic model for us in that it brings in new sources of income. It creates employment opportunities that we can use for our charitable purposes as well. So I'm very keen to talk to you about that and to focus on social enterprise and the difference between social enterprise and a more traditional enterprise model.
Thank you very much, Paul.
I'm Nik. I'm the CEO and founder of Uprosa Limited. We're about 2 years old, and we are a fashion company, if you want to. So we create fashion accessories, tech accessories with real scientific imagery. So we design products with real scientific images. So that phone case is designed with piss, an image from under the microscope of piss. On the back of that, since we're working with a lot of scientists from all over the world, we created an image database, which we just started to utilize and actually started to pull off our first image licensing deals with other fashion brands, with marketers, and in general organizations from completely different industries. So it's a bit of a dual model between like tech accessories and image licensing. That's
Fantastic. Thank you, Nick. And Sarah?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have to say, well, my name is Sarah, first of all, Sarah Puello. I'm very excited to be here because 2 years ago I was sitting right where you guys are at. And I remember feeling incredibly excited about the opportunities ahead. I also felt extremely terrified because I felt like business was a huge mountain to climb and I just wasn't fit for it yet. I don't know if I am, but anyway, here we go. So 2 years on, I've actually co-founded one startup called Doers & Co. And we're about to launch our website in a few days, actually. It's a collaborative platform for students who work on projects together. And I'm also here actually to represent Cycle.land, which is a startup that I joined in May of this year, and where I work as part of the community building and strategy aspect. And Cycle.land is a peer-to-peer bike sharing platform, like Airbnb, but for bikes. And basically what Cycle.land does is that it allows users who have bikes to come onto the platform, put on their bike for rental, and then members of the community to come onto the platform to rent from the owners of the bikes. So that's me.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So as you can see, there are three very different types of organisations here. And all the panellists, I think, have been involved with the Entrepreneurship Centre and the Skull Centre over the last few years. One thing that I'd like to ask our panellists, perhaps to kick off the discussion, is about how you ended up becoming an entrepreneur. Because I think you've all come at it from very different career backgrounds, very different educational backgrounds. So what made you become an entrepreneur, and where did that spark, that idea come from? Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can kick off. Thank you, Megan. I think what sparked it for me personally was anger, a sense of urgency, that there was there's such a the scale of deprivation and the scale of inequality that sort of is around all of us was something that made me angry, and wanting to be able to do something about that, in terms of there was a definite sense of urgency, but also wanting to do something about it in a way that was structured and empowering, and which would enable people to make changes in their lives. And I see social enterprise and the enterprise model, which is deliberately innovative. You are seeking out answers to these urgent problems. I saw that as a very empowering way to go about achieving change. In terms of a little bit of my background, I spent 7 years in the British diplomatic service, and a few years of that was in a posting to Syria. And of course, witnessing quite incredible change in that country. But something that I take from my time there was just how entrepreneurial the people were there, and really learning from that and being inspired by that from nothing, great change can come, and people can be incredibly innovative with very little resource. And I think that's something for me to return to here, is that as services, and there's a lot of pressure on the third sector, as particularly in the areas that we're focused on as an organisation, whether that's homelessness, supporting refugees, delivering transport for the elderly. There's a lot of pressure and despair in those systems at the moment, but actually that's a time where innovation becomes paramount, and where it really does, the urgency comes to the fore. And I'm a great believer that enterprise can really become a catalyst for solving some of these entrenched problems.
I feel like what Paul has just said might resonate quite well with you, Sarah, from the background of your businesses.
It's definitely resonating. I think I can't say that my decision to explore entrepreneurship comes from a place of anger, but it definitely, I can relate to the sense of urgency, particularly because from a very young age, and I'm sure perhaps members of the audience agree, we're told that we have to follow our passions and really find what our passions are. And based on that, everything will be fine, and we'll find this great venture that we're going to get into, and we're going to find the meaning of life. And I found that completely debilitating. But at the same time, I felt like there was a sense of urgency for me to do something related to the things that I was interested in. And so the urgency aspect of it became a sense of I'm going to pursue the things that I enjoy doing that have meaning to me. And for me, those things were things like cities. I have a PhD in comparative literature in cities, and I was always very passionate about cities. But within the realm of literature, I felt like I wasn't really able to offer what it was that I wanted to offer cities, in a sense, and people living in cities. And so that's when that sense of urgency became a quest for understanding what it was that I wanted to do in relation to cities. And in the end, it was about people and how people live in cities and how they mobilize themselves in cities. And once I decided I wasn't going to, follow my passion like people were telling me I had to, I started following the things I was interested in. And so I became involved in the activities here at the business school and started to meet people and talk to people. And by talking to people, I started to hone in on those things that I was interested in. And eventually through View, I met Agne. Agne was doing Cycle.land, which is basically about urban mobility and how do we make the places where we live more sustainable in the way that we move around them. And little by little, those things kind of came together. And so that's how I kind of relate to that sense of urgency and entrepreneurship. It's that sense of I'm here to do something, and I will get there by exploring the things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think finding that sort of point of focus is really quite important if you're going to set up a business or join the right organisation, in the sense that it's very easy to tackle extremely large problems or to feel passionate about extremely large problems, but ultimately you probably can't solve all of that problem. You need to find the one single thing that you are going to do to make it just that tiny little bit better. And that could grow into something amazing and something huge, but it could also just be one small step on the right path in many ways. Nick, how about you? How did you end up sort of becoming an entrepreneur?
I wasn't angry.
I'm glad to see there's a way of coming at this that isn't angry.
I actually wanted to go into venture capital, and then because of the master program that I did, so I did basically an MBA, a very entrepreneurial MBA with focus on biotechnology, because I wanted to go into venture capital for biotechs, a lot of money in that area, so I felt I got to do that. And throughout the course, I got involved in like various entrepreneurial activities and kind of like co-founded a cancer diagnostics company with some of the colleagues in my course, and well, that didn't work out, and the tech wasn't as good as we thought in the beginning, and the only thing that we had was that we created a lot of pretty pictures. No one wanted to give us money for that, so I thought we could auction them off in order to like raise money for a good cause. But then I felt, why doing that? And just had this idea that, well, we could just try to kind of like commercialize scientific imagery in a different way. It really came from that, and that was a bit of like talking to people in my direct like environment. I was in a corridor with basically the people in my course, like 20 of them are proper scientists. I have a business degree, and there was one lawyer. So that is kind of like when business people approach science, maybe when that happens, that you start setting pictures. But it is really that what we felt is that a lot of PhD students, a lot of researchers live on extremely limited budgets. They don't get a lot of money when they do their PhDs. Sometimes not even enough to go to the conferences they need to attend in order to get their work out there. In general, they don't get a lot of exposure for their work. No one really recognizes what they do outside of, or like, if these people are not like directly amongst their peers. They even struggle when they communicate to their friends what they do. So we felt, well, maybe we can do something for them. And they were all sitting on like a lot of like imagery, and their hard drives are full with these beautiful images, and we felt like, let's try to sell them. So this was my route to entrepreneurship. I mean, like, I was involved in a couple of other things throughout my undergrad, but I wouldn't really call it entrepreneurial. I mean, like, there's so many things going on out there, from business plan competitions and pitch contests, and I think it's a good start, but I do not believe actually that these things really lead you towards being like someone that starts his own business, because it's really completely different. It's a good way to make money alongside your studies.
So what do you think does sort of tip someone over the edge into starting their own business?
I don't know.
If it's not a business plan.
It's basically, for me it was curiosity. It's like creating something. As I said, I wasn't angry. I didn't really feel the pain that the people feel that actually benefit from our service. I'm not talking about the customers that get pretty phone cases, for example. I'm talking about the scientists not having any money. So we saw this opportunity, and I kind of like approached it a little bit from a business point of view, like really looking, okay, is there potential? And I mean, as I said, we started out with phone cases, and today we're actually selling the images, which are two completely different things, and it took us a while to get there. But I think the benefit of being an entrepreneur, and like that coming from me, like working for large corporations before as well, is that you can really do what you want to, except for the whole tax thing. That always has to work out. But other than that, you can do literally what you want to do, and can create. And like today could be this, and tomorrow it could be not something completely different, but you can evolve. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's fair to say that there are a number of different ways you can approach entrepreneurship, because some people do, they want to be an entrepreneur. They want to set up a business. They don't really much care which business it is, but they want to be successful at it and want to do that. Many very successful serial entrepreneurs approach it with that viewpoint, and they do a lot of good in the world as well, but they've approached it because they want that lifestyle, or they have that skill set, or they're curious and they're interested, or they're always moving on to the next thing and they just happen to set up businesses by accident, or whatever it may be. And then I think other people are almost their own customers, so they see the problem, see something in their own lives that sort of bothers them, and therefore have identified a consumer group which they actually belong to, and then they set up a business to address that group. And both approaches are very valid. I think I don't think it makes much of a difference.
If I can make a comment about that, I mean, that was certainly the case in both Cycle.land and Doers & Co. I can't speak exactly for Cycle.land because Agna Milakaita was the person who had the idea, although I know from her personal story that it comes from a need. Of her coming to Oxford and noticing all these unused bikes around the town, and her needing a bike and feeling a bit like there's so many unused bikes and I need one and I could just go to the shop and get one, but what if there was a platform or something somewhere where I could just go and get one from someone else that is not using their bike. So I know that that's where it came from her, and that was definitely a need. In Doers & Co., for example, the idea also came from a need from myself and my co-founder, Lea Sefer, which was that we were both PhD students at Oxford who were not part of the business school. And we were interested in using the skills that we had, not only our academic skills, but the things that we have learned throughout life. Just by virtue of being curious and interested people. We wanted to use what we knew how to do and what we were interested in something productive. And we felt that we wanted to do it outside of the academic circle. But we felt that at the beginning, we didn't have the idea, but also we weren't sure that we had the right people to start it with. And we didn't know where to go to make this happen, either to find the people with the idea or to find other team members that would kind of join us. And so we thought, okay, if we can't find that, why don't we make the place where that is possible for other people? And so that's how Doers & Co. was born. And so definitely for a lot of people who decide to become entrepreneurs, it's not, we didn't suddenly wake up and decide we wanted to be entrepreneurs. We just knew we wanted to do something, and we wanted to definitely use our skills. And so we just kind of went for the thing that we felt was needed and missing.
So I think you've all talked about identifying a really strong need from someone in terms of setting up a business. You've also talked about talking to other people, getting a group of people together, different people from different backgrounds. But what do you think really made you guys successful in your enterprises? What do you think was really the key to the whole thing? Do you want to start, Nik? You look like you've got something.
I'm just trying to I think it mainly a lot of work.
Yeah.
Just really sitting there hours and hours and hours, and basically sometimes you do a lot of stuff and the next day you just throw it away. You learn something from it and you move on. A bit of luck, but I guess the more you try, the higher your chances are that you're actually getting lucky at some point. So I think that's really it. You got to be really persistent. But
I'd echo with Nick in terms of perseverance, just sticking at it and being prepared to put a lot of your time and energy towards something. You know, you've really got to put the hours in. And I found more over the last year or so, networking, having access to influential people who also care and share a common interest in what you're doing can really give that spur to your innovation.
I actually think for Cycle.land it's been 3 things. Number 1 and most important has been use of resources available, and that means mostly around the university structure. We were incubated by Oxford University Innovation earlier this year, and we launched two months after that. And definitely using all the resources that have been available around the university, not only through innovation, but through the business school, through networks of people, Enterprising Oxford. That has really helped us to spread the word. In fact, to the extent that a lot of people have come to us because they've seen us somewhere else or somebody else has talked about it. That has been number 1. I think number 2, from very early on, community was paramount to us. And the way that we started Cycle.land when we were still quite small was that we basically gave a bespoke service to the users that came onto the platform, and we helped them take pictures. We put them on the website for them. We helped them build the profiles for their bikes. And that service that was so personalized and with very positive language, I think really contributed to the word spreading quite quickly. And I think number 3, definitely the team. Definitely each of us in the team have very specific, we have specific skills, I think, and we respect that each of us contributes something to the business and to the company and to its success. And we just have this very transparent, open policy. We're friends, essentially, and I think that has really contributed as well.
And what do you think are your metrics of success as businesses? I mean, is it a financial metric? I presume there is also an impact measurement, obviously, for a social enterprise. What do you think? I mean,
yeah. So first and foremost, the bottom line counts. You know, we have to bring in a certain level of income. We have to be sustainable, and I think that's really important. Even more important, actually, I'd say, in operating in the charitable sector. The third sector, where the traditional model of income has been very much reliant on grants and other sources of funding, which are simply are drying up rapidly and will not exist in several years' time. So I think that's a very important aspect. But we are driven by my organisation and myself personally, driven by a strong sense of social mission, a social purpose, and we do collate metrics around the impact that we have, so the number of people who we reach, the number of people who we support into employment that don't reoffend again, that don't relapse on or in terms of addiction, the numbers of elderly people who we connect with the outside world. All of these things we measure, and increasingly actually the two are becoming closer together in terms of income and social outcomes, in terms of social finance, which is a quite an innovation, I guess, for the charitable sector, in terms of being able to access new sources of finance to launch new services and new products, being able to demonstrate and evidence impact, which in turn allows us to draw down more finance. So that's quite an interesting interplay there.
And how about for the other businesses? I mean, is it simply a case of how much money you make each year, or do you have interim metrics, other things you're keeping an eye on that tell you about the health of your business and whether it's working?
Well, I guess it's always a combination of financial results and other things, because if your finances don't work, you don't exist. Mm-hmm. But if I think about it, I mean, like for us, for me personally, sales is an extremely important measure for the success. I mean, we're a product business, so I mean, like the more we sell, the more reach we have, the more money we make. That is kind of important, but and it was great, like when we didn't like kicked off the whole like wholesale business, and then suddenly saw our products in huge department stores, and not just one or two of them, but hundreds. That was cool. But still, and I, since she's just sitting over there, Leah, I told her the same as for me. Personally, so far, it was seeing our product the first time in the packaging, still, because suddenly it was a finished product that you can actually sell. Another cool one is when we pay the scientists and actually move money and give back to them, because it kind of like, even though that most of them don't really submit because they want to make loads of money with us, it's just when I think about it, the first couple of months when we paid them, it was like, yeah, we had this like barrier. If you're not going to go over £10, we can't pay you because it's just too much work. And now, like back then, it's like, yeah, that person was like £11 now, so we're going to pay them. And now it's actually giving like 100, 150, 300 pounds to someone that actually really makes a difference to that person, because they can actually do stuff with that. Was like, yeah, with £10, it's a dinner. Also nice. So that is for me measure of success, and obviously also like the customer feedback. And it will always happen that people just really hate you because you got something wrong, but most of them actually really like what we do, and that's also cool. So yeah.
I think what your answers have made me think about is that probably success will probably be different depending on who you ask within the team, but also what stage you're at as well, because this is making me think of one of the answers Agna gave to one of an interview she had about milestones, and what was your biggest milestone, or what's your biggest achievement been? And it was basically, well, every day is an achievement. Every day we have a new milestone. Our biggest success right now is that we have 2 weeks left of our first equity crowdfunding campaign, and we're fully funded already. We've reached our target of 100,000 and we have over 170 backers, funders, as of this afternoon, and we've raised over 140K. So obviously right now, that is the measure of our success, right? We've been able to do it, and we still have 2 weeks to go in the campaign. But obviously it's the little successes, the little milestones every day that, you know, keep us going, basically.
For which business was that?
For Cycle.land. Yeah.
So looking at the flip side of the coin, and perhaps the days when things aren't going quite so well, I'd be interested to hear from you guys of just perhaps pick one of the challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur or as someone who works in a startup business, and what did you draw from that? What did you learn from that?
I don't know, reading helps, so maybe. No, it's like, just most recently we had the tax man coming in. That was, and that was because we made a mistake. We weren't even aware that we made the mistake. We kind of like got away with it, but it was quite scary. So what basically happened is like we moved from like a fairly simple production, like here in the UK, on demand, everything is nice and easy, and you pay when they produce, to large-scale production overseas. And not just that half of our stock arrived faulty, which is also something that you don't want to have if you suddenly basically check thousands of units just on the quality, but we had huge issues because of cash flow. So suddenly you have to pay VAT and import taxes on goods, and we wanted to have our VAT back as quickly as possible, but it wasn't possible the way we wanted it, and we made an accounting error, and that led to a huge thing, basically, suddenly getting all the books clean and perfect, which you should have anyway, but there's always something that you can improve when it comes to that. And had these people come in and blocked everything for us happened within 48 hours. And it's just like you sit there and you just wait for thousands of pounds and tax refunds that you actually need to pay your suppliers, to pay your bills, and the money sits there, but just in a different account, and you can't access it even though it's yours. So that was a big one for us very recently.
Would you do something differently if you were doing it?
Yeah, I wouldn't like blindly trust my accountant. That is one. It was for us. We did everything wrong. We just missed to submit one specific form, and that is actually something your accountant should know. Saying that, I mean, you also need specialized people depending on the company. I mean, like for some businesses, very, very easy to do the accounting. For others, like ours, is already a bit more complex. And our accountant just didn't know about it. It's just like, otherwise he would have not submitted our tax refunds, VAT refunds, the way he did. So yeah, that's why I mean, like reading really helps, and just gotta look into it. That was a boring problem, but it was a big one.
It sounds rather more scary than boring, actually. I mean, that must have been quite an amazing moment in your business when...
It wasn't scary. It was just like really like exhausting, because I mean, you have your warehouse, half of your warehouse is full of faulty products. You don't even know in which box they are, really, and you got to separate them and got to send them to a company that destroys them and get all of that right and order new ones. And pay taxes again. On the other hand side, like you don't really expect it, that suddenly like the taxman knocks at the door and says like, and now we're gonna meet next week and we're gonna talk that through all day. And it was, when I called them, it was actually like, yeah, we wanna do a company visit because we're not quite sure if you're a real company. And I was like, okay. We did our annual accounts and all that, and it's like, yeah, but we wanna see the premises. We actually want to see that there's an office, and we only just moved to our first like real office a couple of weeks ago. So back then, our official address was with our accountant, and we worked from the Launchpad, so that was all a bit dodgy from their understanding. So yeah, it doesn't feel nice, but then it was fine. He's a very nice guy. Still blocked our money for another 2 months, but yeah.
But you got it in the end.
Well, at least once you know when you get it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Sarah, do you have something to follow from that?
The honest truth is that at Cycle.land, we don't talk about challenges or failures. We only talk about opportunities. And I'm not just saying that just to say it, but it's true. It doesn't... in our world, for some reason, you know, it's the way that we've decided to, that's the way our dynamics are, essentially. And I think that, obviously, on the day-to-day, there are things that come up, whatever you like to call it, whether it's a challenge or an opportunity. But what we have chosen to see those things is as learning opportunities, and as I think J.K. Rowling says, as an opportunity to remove the inessential from whatever is going on at that time. So it's an opportunity to realize that there is something that needs to be changed or amended, and then move forward from that. And so I think that that's the way that we've decided to approach it.
So could you give an example of one of those opportunities to learn? Because I think they absolutely are opportunities to learn in any business.
I can give you one from Cycle.land, probably not, but I could possibly give you one from Doers & Co. if that's okay. So we went through 2 phases of View last year. We were very successful in the first one. We won Best Pitch, and we were extremely ecstatic. We got loads of momentum. We had a mentor who was working very closely with us, wanted to be involved in the business. And we were, yes, full steam ahead. But then for some reason, in the second View, we somehow lost our way. And after developing the business model, we weren't so sure about what our offering was. And we completed View. It was also very successful. We learned a lot. That's where I met Agne as well. And from there, we essentially decided, okay, we've reached this point where we're not so sure anymore. We have to take a step back. And that was quite difficult because we needed to remove ourselves from this phase of kind of almost honeymoon phase of, you know, our business is going great. People seem to be really interested. We're getting lots of people wanting us to build this platform, but we're not sure what we are. So we literally, we removed everything from the website. Everything was gone for a few months, and we scaled it back, removed the inessential, and now we're launching again in a few days, essentially. So it was about not being scared to sometimes just kind of take a step back and reassess to move forward. So, and I can speak to Doers & Co. because there let's say I have executive power because I'm one of the co-founders. And Cycle.land is a little bit different because I contribute as a team member. And so my role in terms of what goes and what doesn't varies a little bit. So
We'll come back to that in a moment, but Paul, do you want to talk about one of your challenges?
Yeah, I could speak to perhaps one failure and then to talk about a challenge as we've become more established. So one, and it comes, I think that resonates strongly with what we've just said in terms of we launched a new enterprise which was focused on upcycling furniture. We thought it was a good idea. We had some funding in place. It turned out we were overstretching ourselves. We were overstretching what was still a very small organisation, and I think our ambition was going ahead of our ability to plan and to manage and to really think through the consequences of hiring new staff and trying out a whole new product line, new marketing, etc. So I think what I took from that was there's nothing wrong with failing, there's nothing wrong with trying things new, but if you're going to fail fast and fail cheap, and then learn from it pretty quickly if you can. So that's something, we're constantly launching new enterprises, new services, and we've very much learned from that process. In terms of challenges, I think it's really challenging growing an organisation. It's very challenging starting one. It's also challenging to grow one, particularly when you're looking to take on staff. So I think, I now employ 28 people, and it's taking that to bed with you at night and thinking of all those people that you're trying to be responsible for. And but I think there are stages where you get better at it, better recognise when it's more economically viable for you to go out and seek professional advice and finding people who you can trust, good accountants, good HR people, who can take the burden off of you and also enable your organisation to grow. So that's a challenge to sort of grapple with.
Absolutely.
And not just that, they're not on your payroll. It's actually really, really important, especially in the beginning.
Because they'll tell you the things that the people on your payroll wouldn't necessarily tell you?
With payroll, cash flow. With payroll, there's quite a lot of stuff that comes with it, from insurance to cash flow to actually not being able to get rid of these people very quickly when you need to. So yeah.
Yes, there's inconvenient employment law,
Exactly.
Now, I'm conscious that time is going on, and I'm sure there are lots of people in the audience who have some questions that they'd like to ask. So if perhaps people would like to sort of put their hands up and ask to get the mic, I think Claire's on the side with the microphone, so she'll come around, and Natalie's there as well. If anyone's got any questions they would like to ask. Shall we start off here?
Hi, thank you for your points. It was very interesting. So just going off of that last point about payroll, I was wondering about beginning to hire people, sort of the challenges involved there, and if maybe you're not ready to fully commit to the employment system and fully bring people onto payroll, if there are other strategies you employed early on to sort of pay people on a maybe day-by-day basis or something like that. Thank you.
Sure.
I can give an example of that both as an employer and also, seems like going back in time. Back in 2004, I joined a friend from university to set up a company. And it started off more conveniently, actually, that he subcontracted me. So I set up as self-employed at the time. And the joint project was one of 2 projects I was working on. So it was more convenient for us as our setup because once you employ people, there's certain obligations, payroll, cash flow, employment law, etc. So not being afraid to use subcontracting when it's convenient for you, and to really think through when it's right to make that switch in terms of organisational status. And now I do employ quite a lot of people on our payroll, but I also subcontract a lot as well. So it just depends on what you need, but there's a lot of, you can bring in people on a sessional basis, on a project basis. So you've got to make it work for you and not feel that it becomes an unbearable burden, particularly in terms of cash flow. You learn that quite quickly.
And speaking to that, I think it rather depends on your own skill set as a team as well, as to who you want to bring on board and who you want to subcontract or bring in on an ad hoc basis. And also your product, I think. Like, for example, if your business is totally dependent upon a single piece of code, then you have to think very hard about whether you pay someone to just do that one piece of code and then use it, or whether actually you want that person in-house so that they can maintain it, so that they can make changes to it later, so that you have the IP and there's no issues with that. All of these sorts of things are quite important to think of when you're designing your business plan. And sometimes you can't do the ideal thing. Sometimes you have to say, well, I'll pay them for it and I'll get them to sign a piece of paper saying that it's mine, and then I'll take the consequences. Or sometimes you have to, you're able to kind of put those people on the payroll, or kind of have a closer relationship with them. Just very much depend upon the individuals as well, I think, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know, obviously you've got a relationship with Agner as well as your own business, so I don't know if you have a reflection.
Yeah, I think first Cycle.land and Doers & Co. has definitely been about the skill set that the person brings to the team. We, for example, at Doers & Co., it's been Leah and I for a very long time, over a year and a half that we started conceptualizing the whole idea. And it took us until actually last month to bring someone else on board, because we felt like it had to be the right fit. It had to be someone who could add to the skills that we already had. We didn't want to duplicate, I suppose. And I think that for Agne, I can't speak for her because she reached out to me, but I imagine that I hope that she saw something in me that was complementing what her skills and Peter's skills were. We also have a couple of our tech experts are based in the US, so they're also part of the team, and they have their own skill sets that they bring for the platform and all the back end of the business. But yeah, definitely, I think for us it's been the skill set that has been paramount. Yeah.
Anything to add, or are you happy with what you said? No.
No.
Shall we move on to another question? Because I'm sure there are others that are interested.
Strategies in mind, like with the businesses. I've been told that like some people go in with like a direct exit plan, so either they want to sell to someone else, or have you got any in mind?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
Different.
You were.
It doesn't necessarily want to share it, of course.
The exit plan changed, well, for us at least, because we changed. Changed and adopted the business model. Also, the exit plan changed. At the beginning, there was no exit plan. Then very quickly, we obviously checked, well, what can we do? We looked at other companies that do something similar than we do, and how did it work for them? So a little bit like benchmarking. But for us, the exit plan is literally pretty much we're building an image platform that is our focus at the moment. Yes, we do this fashion brand. Yes, you can sell off a fashion brand. It's actually not very hard, especially in our industry, because you have a couple of companies that are so huge. They're just like shopping, basically, shopping smaller brands for the portfolio. But in terms of the image business, if you look at the large image platforms such as Getty, such as Shutterstock and all these, it's a bit of a different model than Getty. It's a microstock. I don't want to go into too much detail. For many companies out there, they grow by just shopping other companies, and this is what we are building on. We're saying, okay, our data set, our set of images is so unique. No one really collects to that level images as we do, and there's a market that is not consolidated, so that's what we do. Once it's done, we're gonna sell it, like it's the logic consequence is like to sell it to one of these very large image providers such as Getty that have hundreds of millions of images in their portfolio, and for them it's just literally, we grow by 5% or by 1% by buying this company. This is our. But I also don't mind. I mean, if it works well, I'm also going to keep it. It's okay. I don't have to sell it. It's another thing. I wouldn't build it in order to sell it. That was never the plan, and it still isn't at this stage. But yes, obviously.
I saw a little shake of the head over there when exit plans were mentioned.
Agreeing because it's interesting. It's not even in discussion for Doers & Co. For Cycle.land, I mean, we're expanding into 5 cities soon, so I don't think we're necessarily thinking about exit strategy right this moment. I think we might have to defer that question to Agne, perhaps. But we can speak about it more, and I can put you in touch if you're interested. So.
Yeah.
I say it's less applicable to social enterprise, I think. I'd hope. But I think that in terms of exit plan, I think what we want to do is influence central government funding in particular to show them the value of the more preventative type of work we're doing. So it's cheaper for the taxpayer, it's better for the individuals concerned to interject at a certain stage. So for example, community transport. So we support elderly people to go out, do their food shopping, to go to lunch clubs and so on. It all sounds a bit sort of dull, I guess, and a bit sort of traditional, but actually there's quite a powerful message in that we are making sure they're socially included, that they're living independent lifestyles, that they are that they're not relying on very expensive interventions like blocking up a hospital bed or trying to use up very precious adult social care. So if we, through the power of our project and the evidence we build, can go to the clinical commissioning group, Department for Health, and say, with actually a very cost-effective program, you can save a lot of money for the NHS and for the local authorities who would have to fund the adult social care for these elderly people if our service didn't exist. I think that's the kind of exit plan that we have in mind. So it's different obviously from a traditional enterprise.
I could sort of not quite disagree with you though, but I think I've certainly seen examples of social enterprises where there isn't an exit strategy. And I think one of those exit strategies can be making something a commercial enterprise, at the point where you've decided that actually you've filled the niche, the need has been addressed, you've established that it can be done in a commercial fashion and that someone can make money off it. Well, why not let someone do it in a commercial fashion and move on to another social problem that you want to solve that requires the skills and the passion that you have, and let the commercial world take over the area that you've proved is commercially viable. And so that can be, I think, a way of thinking about it.
Being the first mover into a sector to then encourage bigger players to adapt their models that's definitely in line with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Any further questions? We've probably got time for sort of three more, perhaps. So I think there's a gentleman at the back there, and another hand up right at the back there. Yeah.
Hello.
Go for it.
That's very interesting to hear your views and opinions. My question is about Cycle.land. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I read is that Cycle.land is open for £100,000 of investment is what it seeks, in return of 6% of equity. So I just wanted to understand, as an entrepreneur, I mean, of course, presuming that you don't have consultancy or financial experts, how did you come with these projections and what you had in mind? I mean, why would you sell your equity instead of maybe offering a rate of return or maybe a minimum guarantee?
Thank you for your question. So that's a really good question, actually. I think that the decision to go with crowd equity was essentially because as a business, and the value of the business for us was in allowing the opportunity for the community to own part of the business. And so I think in terms of deciding for equity crowdfunding, that's why we decided to go that way. In terms of the nitty-gritty about how we came to the calculations, we could talk about it more perhaps outside, and again, I think I'd probably have to defer the question to Agne and Peter, who work more on the financial aspect of it, which I'm very happy to do, and Agne said we could do that. But definitely for us, the decision of going with crowdfunding was essentially because community was important for us, and that's the way that we wanted to go in that sense.
It's almost marketing for you anyway.
It helps, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that any sort of crowdfunding, without wanting to sort of get into that whole kind of worms, because I think that's a whole other topic. But I think crowdfunding and crowd equity and all of those aspects are often have a totally different marketing aspect, a community ownership aspect to them, as well as the money that you get. And so they're a very specific way of getting some revenue, but it's not just about the money, is it? It's
and also I should add that the reason why we went for that figure specifically is because this particular first round is focused on expansion into 5 cities. So we're going to Cambridge, Edinburgh, Bristol, Brighton, and East London. And so that specific figure has to do with how much we need in order to get to those cities, which are the ones where we feel we already have some contacts, but also where we feel Cycle.land could be successful. So.
Thank you. Do you have a question up there?
Hello. Just a quick question then, related to something that was mentioned at the beginning of the discussion. There was some mention of passion and need and aspects around that. I was wondering, and it's open to everyone. Where do you or how do you see an aspiring entrepreneur going after opportunity? Rather than something that they're specifically interested in. And as myself, for an example, I have ideas all the time, and I see, wow, this is a great opportunity. This could make a lot of money, or potentially could be, socially beneficial. But I'm not specifically interested in that. Like I say, for example, Cycle.land. All right, would you have joined if you didn't care so much about sustainability? And it's just. I think as an aspiring entrepreneur, you see so many opportunities where you can, do a lot of good and you can make a lot of money. But if you're not specifically interested in that area, should you still go ahead for it? Should you still go for it?
I'd say you usually don't make a lot of money if you're not very interested into the topic, because for quite a while you're not going to earn that much money or any. So in order to continue doing it, you must really like at least a specific aspect of. So for me personally, like for example, scientific images, it's not what I live for. I like products. I like physical products, consumer goods. That is what got me into that. And now I developed a very, very strong interest in also like imagery and other aspects of the business, but you need something that really excites you about it. I think that's just for me, but the money, for us it didn't work like that. Maybe for other people it worked like that, and they instantly like kicked off, and it was just a money machine. Could be, but.
I mean, just to build on that, what if it is the creativity or the enterprising environment and that kind of thing that really drives you? And so it isn't so much the product or the service that you're offering, but really the environment of being an entrepreneur. So, I mean, would that be enough? And I know it might be a very broad question, but do you think that would be enough to drive someone? Say, for example, you're selling, I don't know. All right, so here's an example. So I went on the App Store today, and I just saw this app called Bottle Flip. And it's a really stupid app. It's just you like flick your finger and you try and balance a bottle on some platform or something like that. Now, I understand that that's made, it's making thousands of dollars per day. And I read a little interview by the founders, and again, it's not something they had a passion for, but it's something that's worked out. And could it be the fact that it's just they wanted to do their own thing? That's the thing that is really driving them, right? It's not about they don't particularly care about balancing bottles, just that you probably don't care so much about imagery. So
I think it maybe comes back to it comes back to the comment I think that all of our panelists made right at the beginning, which is that this is an awful lot of hard work. You are going to spend an awful lot of your hours doing this if that's what you really want to do. And if you are passionate about running a business, then that's fine. You can be passionate about coding an app. You can be passionate about running a business and those aspects of it. And it doesn't matter what product you're selling. It doesn't matter what problem you're solving. It matters that you enjoy managing people, you enjoy being your own boss, you enjoy kind of, seeing the success of being able to pay people for the work that they've done for you, or being able to, see the crowdfunding campaign move up the charts. So if you get a buzz from that and you're willing to put in all those hours to get that, then that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be about the product itself. But obviously that buzz can come from your cause, and it can come from, sort of the specific product that you've decided to generate.
I definitely agree. I think definitely motivation is variable. So whatever motivates you to keep going every day, I think it depends on every individual. But I think the motivation is key in order to keep you going and to put all those hours. I think there's also attitude to risk is very important. If you're a risk-averse person, it's tough to be in this environment because there is risk every day, and the primary one, I guess, for a lot of people, is a financial one. You take a lot of risk when you start something from scratch, especially if it's something that doesn't exist that you're trying to create for the first time. And it's where you're at in life as well in general. If you're a student who has a lot of debt, and you have to work to be able to support yourself, and you can't run a business on the side, there are so many variables. But I think for me, those would be the key ones to start with.
Absolutely. One of the things we touched upon as a panel before we came up here is actually being an entrepreneur versus being one of the first team members or someone who joins an existing business. And I wonder if we should just briefly cover off the panel's views on that, because I think that may be something that some of you choose to do, that you may not have an idea yourself. You may choose to join someone else's team and become a partner, maybe an equal partner in someone else's business. And I don't know what the panel feels in terms of the difference between those two options. The pros and cons.
I start. I'd say we've all got a long time where we're going to be in work in some form or other, and I think there's potential that you could at some stage in your life be employed by somebody. It could be a very large organisation, a small one. You might be self-employed. I think you've got to be open from getting the benefit from lots of different kinds of employment statuses and opportunities, and then at whatever time is right in your life, and it depends on what are your commitments financially, with family, etc. Opportunity coming along as well. I think there's so much you can get from lots of different types of employment status. So it's just when is it the right time in your life, in your circumstances, to become an entrepreneur in terms of taking on the mantle yourself. And sometimes that can be taking over an existing organisation and being entrepreneurial by launching new services, new products, as well as, of course, the very valid sort of starting from scratch basis too.
I think there are lots of opportunities that come with this second generation founder status, almost like employee number one. I mean, like if the company has an ESOP set up anyway, I mean, like that's great and is certainly a good motivation to actually like owning a share in the company. But I think especially when you go for a young company, you will see that you will do so many different things, and if that is your thing, and not all of them, like I would say 90% of the stuff I do every day I don't particularly like, and it's going to be the same probably for you too if you join a young company, because you're not going to be very specialized. But if you feel like you're an all-rounder and you like what the company does, you like the product, you like the service, you like whatever the mission, then I would definitely go for it. Because I mean, like when you're young, it doesn't really matter how much money you make anyway. I mean, can't really fall. It's just like just get up, go for the next thing. I mean, like if they go bankrupt, yeah, they go bankrupt. I don't know, but I guess for you to do that, you still need to kind of like doing risky things. As much as the co-founders actually, you might not shoulder the risk as much as they do, but it's part of it, I guess. Why?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think so. From the side of the team member, I mean, I've really enjoyed both experiences of being a co-founder and being a team member, and joining after founding. As part of being a team member specifically, I think the great thing about that has been, as you said, just being able to work on so many different parts of the business, and just being to help wherever is needed. I mean, I started helping Agne because she needed help with the content of the website, and I'm very good with words because that's what I did my degrees in. And so I started by literally just rewriting the website, and then eventually my role evolved, and now I've done multiple things. I run events, I do pitches, I do different things now for the business, and I think that's great because if you eventually want to have your own business, it's a good way to learn how an existing small business works, and you've already done a lot of the work, but you don't have all the responsibility that comes with it. Whereas when you found your own business, obviously, then you're responsible for everything that goes out there. You're responsible for how you present yourself. You're responsible in front of the taxman. You're responsible for all these other things that when you're a team member, you don't have to worry about necessarily, because it doesn't necessarily fall on your hands directly, hopefully, or maybe. But yeah, I mean, both are great, and I think that if you're in any doubt and you're unsure, my advice would be just try it, just go for it. Join a startup, look for things that you're interested in, see if it exists. If it already exists, reach out to them, join them. If it doesn't exist, find some other people who might be interested in it and start it yourself.
And the good thing is you can always join a startup. Unlike with a large corporation, if they say, well, we don't have the money or anything, I would just say, yeah, okay, I'm going to work 2 months for free. I'm going to work 2 months for whatever, £500 every month. So something that doesn't hurt them. And if you're really good, they don't want to let you go anyway. So 100%. So it will always work if you want to make the experience, definitely.
Thank you. We're going to have to wrap up at this point and go outside for drinks. I'm going to ask the panel to give you one final piece of advice each. Whilst they think about what that key piece of advice is going to be, let me just wrap up by saying you've heard about a number of our different programs that you may wish to go on to throughout the discussion. So I think Sarah mentioned the VIEW program, the Venture Ideas Exploration Workshops, for those who have a specific idea they want to explore. I know that Uprosa have also been funded by our seed fund. There are many ways in which you can access some of the support that we offer now that you're effectively graduates of this program, and that you can go on to do other things. So do feel free to talk to one of the team in the Entrepreneurship Centre in the Launchpad at the front of the building here. I think Claire and Natalie and Katie, our program management team, are here tonight as well. So do feel free to sort of talk to them if you want to know a bit more information, or you'd like to make sure that you get word of these opportunities. And do, of course, come and talk to our panel who are going to be outside. But first of all, let's hear their final piece of advice to you before we thank them in the usual fashion.
I think I've already said it. I think if you don't have a business but you want to be involved, do it. Just go out there and try things out, reach out to friends, see what is out there based on your interests, based on the things that you like to do. So do it if you don't have a business. If you already have a business, then do it as well. Don't be limited by things that you don't know how to do. Learn how to code, learn how to network, whatever it is, whether you haven't started or you have started, just do it. Go out there and just get involved.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's about doing stuff, but since you just said that, I have to come up with something else. I don't know, I think something I learned is people talk a lot about teams, and teams are extremely important, and you need a team to get something done. And I think this is all good, but if you don't have a team, just still start whatever you want to do. You don't need anyone else. And I know from my own experience to revert a decision that you made at the very beginning when you picked someone that isn't a good team member, that is much harder than just going the first couple of months on your own. It's maybe a bit scarier because you're just responsible for everything when you do it completely on your own. But if I think back, I would have done it that way. And I mean, along the way, you learn so much stuff anyway. I mean, I would have never thought that in my whole life would ever use Photoshop, and now I can pretty much Photoshop anything. But all the stuff, when it comes to coding, there's so many tech stacks out there, there's so many contractors out there, so many I don't know, platforms that you can use to do stuff. You can do a lot just if it's just on your own. So just do that.
Thank you. And Paul?
Yeah, mine would be exploit the free stuff and the free advice. There's a lot of people out there who want to see you succeed, who want to help. And I think particularly in Oxford, and particularly around Oxford University, there's real privilege in terms of the platforms that are available through the Enterprise Centre and through the university in general. So you've got a much greater chance of getting it right the first time if you make the best of those resources available to you, which, if you're Joe Bloggs down the road, or you're not linked to the university, you don't have. So make the use of it, because that's just the rational, enterprising decision that you should be doing. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And also, don't be scared to fail. It could happen anyway, so it doesn't matter how good the whole thing, how well the whole thing goes.
Or to embrace
could
opportunities.
still fail, it doesn't matter.
Or embrace opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes, and change things up, do something a bit different, as I think that you've done on several occasions, Nick. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed the final Building a Business panel. And could you join me, please, in thanking our wonderful panel?